Good day, everybody, and welcome to this presentation of Learning Support in Mathematics, LSM 32. I am Rieta Landsberg. My telephone number and my email details are there. Please contact me when you have questions. I'm more than welcome. I'm more than willing to help you. Please feel free. Now, first of all, just a few assignment instructions. The assignments are done now. All the assignments are done online. And please follow the online instructions. One thing that we had to deal with the previous online assignments, some of you forget to save before you submit, and then you submit an empty paper, which is really very sad because I know you've done it all and you've worked through it, and then instead of saving it, you just submit without saving, and then I get the empty paper to mark. So please be aware of that and make very sure that you do that. When the exam comes, it can also be online or it can be a written exam, so please also take note of all the instructions, whether it's online or whether it's a sit-down exam. Remember, do not use any pencil for anything. If you make a mistake, just scratch it through with a pen and you carry on. Don't ever start with pencil and try and erase it later on. Go through the exam instructions before you start. We have 7 sessions, 7 study units, and in each and every assignment and exam, there will be questions from each and every unit. So don't think some units you skip, or some units are only for April and some units only for August. That also happened in the past. All 7 units are covered in the assignment as well as in all 3 exams. And there's about 13 to 14 marks for each and every study unit. So don't skip a study unit. I will ask every study unit at least 12, 13, 14, sometimes 15. It depends on the questions. It can be long questions, it can be short questions. There's 4 types of questions, and it's very important that you know what to answer and read the questions carefully. Definitions are not always in the study guide. It's describing whatever is asked. Describe what the word means, or describe what the fact means. Short questions give facts, give factors, give principles, processes, etc. Name, discuss, or describe. If you have to name, you name it, and in one short sentence, even just one line, you can just say what it is. Name it. Discuss and describe means you have to explain what it is, and explain it in your own words, and if possible, or if appropriate in the question, give examples. That's the most important in all questions. Give proper examples. And now in future, examples that are given in the study guide that will not be marked correctly. You have to put your own example. So all cases, all study units where there's examples in the different places, make your own example, create your own examples. The examples given in the study guide is your guide, so that you can create your own examples, which tells me, yes, you know what this is all about. And the essay type, remember, if an essay is asking, write an essay. You have no points, no bullets, no A, B, C, D, no 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not an essay. An essay is in paragraphs, You have an introduction, you have a body, and you have a conclusion. At least the 3 paragraphs, but your body can also consist of more. And then, in your opinion, or do you agree questions. You have to divide this question in 3 sections. You have to give arguments for the fact, or the fact that's given. You have to give arguments for, arguments against, and then you have to write a very clear motivation. Do you agree or do you not agree? And then give a motivation why. You can't start this answer by, yes, I do. And then you give a lot of facts, which is not actually really relevant. Make sure you know what to do in these type of questions. As I say, you must give arguments for. So say, argument 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this statement. Arguments against, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arguments against this statement, and then your final conclusion. So your yes or no, I do agree, must come after your explanation. So first study, the first study unit, basic knowledge. Important for, this is not, okay, the learning cycle, sorry, that one came up unexpected. The learning cycle. And you have to know what it is. See that you can draw the diagrams. See that you know, in your own words, describe the different cycle facts. Approaches, methods, difficulties, and then the language in mathematics. And I can really advise you, make your own summaries. Don't learn from the book and learn the book sentences. You have to make summaries, write it short and in your own words. All the long descriptions in the study guides, it's not facts. It's not things that you get marks for. So please, if you have to name, just name it in your own words or name them and give a short description, not writing paragraphs and paragraphs from the study guide. Name, describe and discuss. If you have to give examples, you name them in short, describe and support the support it gives. Describe what learners do and teachers do. Read the question. Don't just write the answer of learners and teachers and everything. There's only one little short part that is asked, what learners do or what teachers do. Read the question and answer only what is asked, not all the rest. That you will be penalized if you answer a lot of stuff that's not asked. Approaches to teaching and learning. The 2 approaches, you give either definition of the different learning approaches and you give disadvantages of each approach. Now, in the past, I've also asked, why is it important to use different approaches? And then you answer and you give me the approaches. You describe the approaches. That was not the question. The question was, why is it important to give different approaches, to teach with different learning approaches? So can you see how important it is to read the question? Yes, different approaches. There's advantages. There's disadvantages. There's reasons why different approaches must be used. And then you describe the reasons why. And if it's not in the study guide, you must always make up your own, think up your own creative questions, because all of that is part of it. I can ask you reasons why, and it's not in the study guide. Explain what is meant by children are not empty vessels, one of those examples. No, it's not facts from the study guide. You have to make your own creative answer here. Give your own opinion and explain. This is an open-ended question. There's no right or wrong answer. The answer depends on your creativity, your creative explanation of your own opinion. That's very important. So there's also methods to support different learning abilities. And also still learning support different approaches, but now methods to support it. So can you see how important it is to read the question? You can give reasons. You can, it can be asked, name the different methods. It can be asked, which method do you think is best for the learner that has difficulty in sitting, or whatever case scenario is explained, and you have to now create your own answer. There's also no right or wrong answer, but you have to create your own opinion and think, what will I do in that case scenario? Learning difficulties also. There's lots of questions that can be asked, not just discuss the types. What types of learning difficulties? And it can be just asked, name them, discuss them, and give examples. So remember, a question like that can count up to 12 marks if you have to name it and describe and also give examples. And I can't stress it enough that you summarize your work and think of good examples in each and every case, in each and every question. And then it won't be difficult for you to answer the questions. The possible causes and strategies to overcome. So you have to read carefully what is asked, the types, the reasons, why there's this difficult learning difficulties, possible causes, and how to overcome. It's quite 4 different types of questions, and you have to decide what is this question, what is asked in this specific question. And then also own opinion questions can be asked, and you must think and make your own opinion of this specific question. Language of mathematics is also discussed in this in the feedback and in the study guide. Please read the feedback of the previous assignments and the previous examinations. It's discussed really in depth, the type of difficulties that students have, the type of wrong answers are given, the misinterpretation of the question. It's all discussed in that feedback. Make sure that you go through that feedback. Describe how you would plan your daily lesson. Then, if I ask a lesson plan, I will ask a lesson plan. If I ask activities for a specific lesson, you only describe the activities, not the lesson plan and introduction and anything else but activities for that specific lesson. Learning activity 1 and 2, 1.1 and 1.2, all those learning activity questions. You've got, it's like a little exercise, and all the explanations or the answers are at the back of the book. Also, summarize it and make it your own and describe it in your own words. Don't change the facts. No, you just summarize it in your own words and make it shorter, not long descriptions. That will never be asked in the exam. Going on and on, explaining in just another way of saying the same thing over and over again. In study unit 2, we cover the planning, the role of practice, concepts, using games, materials, and questioning and answering. That's a lot, and there will be questions on this. Planning, as I say, read the question. 4 factors to consider when planning. 4 factors to take into account when deciding how to teach a topic. It's 2 different questions. Elements that should be included in a lesson plan. Name it, then you just name it, discuss it, name and discuss and give examples. Let you be led by the marks. If it's 8 marks for 4 facts, you know you have to describe each one. If it's more than 8 marks, like 10 marks or 12 marks, you have to give good examples of it for each. And then also, why do you think it's important? Those types of questions, you have to go and think, and there's no right, correct, or wrong answer. You have to create your own opinion about a fact. Give advantages, give disadvantages, give points for or against, and then make your own opinion. The role of practice. Now, what is meant by practice? And some students in the past misinterpreted this a lot. Practice in a mathematics lesson is not like science practicals. And this was the misinterpretation. You think it's practicals where you go and do some experiments or so. No, practice is practice what you've learned already. Make sure you know the difference there and read the question carefully. Definition, not facts from the study guide. If you have to formulate it yourself. Why is practice necessary? Give 5 important principles for practice. Can you see these are all, it's all about practice. But now you read your question and see, oh, it's practice. And you just give some facts or some principles or reasons why it's necessary. You don't read the question. Read what is asked and only give those. Not all of it and all the different questions that you've learned. And also your own opinion questions. Really, if in your own opinion, why should practice never be given as punishment? This is not in your study guide. You have to formulate your own thing. That's why I mention questions like this. Think up some more questions. Ne? How concepts are acquired, describe examples, name them, and please make your own summaries so it can count up to 5 marks. Using games. Now, there's also a lot of questions that can be asked on games. Why? Why is games important? Why do you use games? Give the property of a good game. That's not describing the advantages of games. So, advantages, disadvantages, properties of a good game. What would you consider if you create your own game? So that's all different questions. So it's very important, ne? You see it in each and every study unit. It's important that you read what exactly is asked. How often would you use games? This is not in the study guide. So prepare a question like that. Summarize a question like that. What is your opinion? How many times would you as a teacher in your class do this? And remember, if you have to give your own opinion, make it a habit. Give advantages, arguments for, then arguments against, and then a proper conclusion with your decision. It can be, no, you don't agree, or it can be you agree. There's no right or correct or wrong answer. You must motivate whatever your decision is. We are all different people. And as teachers also, we have our own teaching style. And what works for one doesn't work automatically for another teacher. So you have to develop your own style, your own way of doing things, and that's why these type of questions are important. Materials, different materials can be asked, textbooks, not only textbooks, and disadvantages, advantages, and then other questions also, like what I've asked in the past exam. How can a textbook help the teacher? And then you just say advantages of a good textbook. That's not what is asked. You must think up your own answer here. How can a textbook help a teacher? Is quite a different question and it's not in the study guide, think of this. Make your own answers. How can a textbook help the learner? How can a textbook help the parent? I mean, all those questions, it doesn't come up in the study guide. Think of these and prepare yourself, prepare paragraphs for these type of questions. Questioning and answering, there's also a lot to say about it. Reasons, describe, general principle of effective questioning. It's all different. Name them, describe them. Discuss the reasons why questioning is important. That is not effective questioning principles. It's different. It's reasons why. And a teacher can address a question to the whole class. Let them put their hands up and then appoint one learner to answer. Now, this is a scenario, and in your opinion, what's the disadvantages, advantages, and you give a proper conclusion. So, again, this is an open-ended question. Give some attention to those. And make sure that you go through the learning activities at the end or at the beginning of the study unit, and the answers are all at the back of the study unit. Then, cardinal numbers, the next unit. The difference between them. Examples. So if this is asked, the cardinal numbers and the ordinal numbers. So you have to explain. This is just counting how many. The answer of how many. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the next one, the ordinal numbers. There's good examples, and you make your own examples, not what I gave in the presentation, not what is in your study guide. Set up a nice summary and make your own examples. So explain the difference between rote counting and rational counting. So also, this is a question that can be asked, and you have to give examples, your own examples. Song and rhymes. Would you use song and rhymes? And if you just see the question, you read and you see, oh, song and rhymes, and then you just describe whatever comes into your head. So read the question again. Will this method be enough? Give reasons for your answer. Why? Always think of why, how many, when, etc. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, stages of teaching, where you involve them, critical evaluate. Learners should memorize the multiplication tables very well. You give your arguments. There's no correct or wrong answer. It's again, you create your own way of thinking and why you give reasons, arguments for, arguments against, and what works for me not necessarily works for another teacher. So that is why you are a teacher. You are now developing your own style and method, but you need to verify and you need to motivate, why do I do things this way and not that way? Classifying skills, there's lots of questions also that can be asked. Name the properties for classifying and grouping objects. Discuss the properties. You have to name and shortly explain them. Which learning experience are incorporated in lessons on logic and classifying skills? So again, name 3 learning experiences, and shortly discuss them. And if one of the properties are asked, you only describe one, that specific one, and you go further with it. Comparison, making skills. So that's also giving definition of comparing. So comparing can include a lot of things. Number comparing and a lot of other stuff of comparing shapes. And if a question is asked specifically on geometrical shapes, then your examples must all be with geometrical shapes. I've asked a question like that in a past papers for 12 marks about geometrical shapes, and then you come up with comparing a color or texture or material it's made of. It's not relevant to this question. So very carefully again read what is asked. If comparing is asked in connection with color or with objects or different materials, that's quite different from geometrical shapes or numbers or whatever you need to compare. There is the geometric shapes. When you have to teach geometric shapes for the first time, which activities would you think will be the best? Again, your own opinion. And say, why will you do it this way? Will you introduce all of them at once? Will you introduce one every day, and after 5 days you will combine them, etc.? You make your own lesson here and describe what you will do. According to you, your opinion, how many different shapes will you introduce in one lesson, in one day? So give reasons again. Say why. And give reason for motivate your answer. Part-whole relationships, very important base for a certain mathematics topic later. So which mathematic topic? You have to also think for yourself, decide what is very important for what later. 3 types, give 3 types, describe 3 types, so it can be led by the number of marks. And the common misconception concerning whole-part relationship. Now this is a common misconception. Definitely not describing how would you overcome this misconception. I got this also in the past exam. Misconception is asked and you describe how to overcome it, how to correct it. That was not in the question at all. If the method how to correct it is asked, you give that. If the misconception is asked, you say, this is the misconception. They see, if I cut an apple in 2, I see 2 apples instead of 1, and whatever, describe the misconception. And don't use the example in the study guide. Make your own example, which is correct. You can't just take a person and say cut it in half. You take a correct and appropriate example for each and every question that is asked. So give your own examples, not the books. Go through the learning activities, go through the questions, make them your own, summarize them in your own words. So ordering, patterning, measuring, weight, length, temperature, money, time, so dramatic play. There's lots of very practical questions that can be asked, as well as theory behind it. Ordering, patterning, next, last, biggest. Think of a lot of more words here. Think of your own words. I gave now here a first few. Next, last, biggest, smallest, before, after. Go and make a list of at least 10 of these examples. And don't give my examples or the study guide's examples in your question. So give definitions. This is not in the study guide. Create your own definitions from what you understand. Ordering is when, blah, 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 blah. And you explain it, describe it. Patterning is when. This and this, give the facts as is, and not describing in lots of sentences and that's not a definition. You give it short and simple. 3 common pattern abilities. Learners have to master and give examples of each. Again, If there's in the study guide 5 or 6 and you are asked for 3, you give 3 and describe them properly with proper examples. Now with measure volume, weight, length and temperature. And you know that conversion is very important here. Give example of how you will teach length inside and outside the classroom. That's your own creative lesson. It can be asked in a different way. It can be asked outside the school. It can be asked, how will you teach that lesson on a day trip or on a field trip? And then think of subjects that is relevant, that you can also include into this. Also, all other topics outside this, only specific length or weight or height, etc. Understanding money. There's lots of different questions also here that can be asked. Choose one money-based activity you will use when presenting a lesson on money. One activity. Then you can't come up with a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different activities. There's lots of activities that can be done. You choose one and then you describe it. If I ask a question like this, describe one or write an essay on one money-based activity you will use. You have to say what will you prepare for practicals in that lesson. What will you hand out to the learners? What will you ask them to do? What one activity, and you describe that one activity and make a good conclusion. It's really very difficult if I ask one activity and you explain and describe 10 activities. So what must I mark now? Which one of the 10 activities? Usually you just ask the first sentence or activity and then you stop. And that's a big problem with the marks, because if it's 10 marks, you get 1 or 2 marks or maybe just 1 for giving one activity, and all the rest of your other 9 activities that was not asked, you get 0 for that. So it's important. If I say describe how you will test or how you will create a lesson on money, how you will create the lesson or plan the lesson, then you describe how you will plan it. If I ask how will you give this lesson with 1 or 2 activities, then you just answer what is asked. Time. Explain the difference between sequence of time and duration of time. People, all of you, go and summarize. Make a summary and say sequence of time. Make a definition and give a description and an example, your own example. Duration of time. How long will this take? How long did the film take? You make a definition. Make it up in your own words. Create your own definition. This is what duration of time means, not just sentences from the study guide. And also explain what it is and give proper good examples. Then you can, if I mark something, a question like that, then I can very easily see, yes, you know exactly what this is all about. But if it's so vague, and I can't really say you know what you're talking about, I can't give marks for that. So there's a critical evaluate. So remember, give arguments for. And those questions can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And arguments again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So make sure you don't write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when you ask as essay. But when you ask to critical evaluate, you can do that. Dramatic play is not games. A lot of you interpret those, a lot of previous students interpret this as games or playing or practicals. Dramatic play is where you have role play, and that is quite something different than games. Games is a total other topic, and when will you use games, and so that's nothing to do with dramatic play, role play, a shop, role play anything else, going on a holiday, going and buy ice cream, role play, and the different learners take up different roles. So this is very important also to make your own scenario, make your own idea, create your own idea about role play. How do you feel about it? All learners, all teachers are not for it, and many teachers do not use it at all, which is not wrong, but you must be able to motivate why not. So again, go through the learning activities and make sure that you make your own summaries. Graphs, percentages, decimal system, angles. Graphs, make sure that you know the names of the graphs and the different skills which are applied, creating graphs. All around graphs, make summaries, the different questions, answers, examples, etc. Don't just give all the answers or everything you know about graphs when a question on graph is asked. That's really, really very inappropriate. Working with percentages, make sure that you know exactly the steps and read again. Read the question twice. Discuss a few examples of where percentages are used in the school. Then you give examples in the school. In everyday life, that's definitely not in the school. And create your own answers. Think of, how do I use this in everyday life, in my family, outside, not only in mathematics and financial careers. That's not actually everyday life. The decimal system, there's lots of questions that can be asked. Summarize them, make them your own, and remember there's no correct or wrong answer if an open-ended question is asked. Your opinion, and your opinion must be given at the end, after you give some advantages, some disadvantages, how you see it, and then your conclusion. Angles, also there's lots of questions that you can create yourself, and using the metric system for measuring is very important, that you can actually explain to learners, why do we use kilogram and gram and stuff like that? Go through the activities there also. Construction materials in a classroom. Again, think of questions that can be asked where you have to motivate your answer. Give advantages, disadvantages, and say what you think. Storage. How do I store mathematical materials? Why, where, when, how? Use that common guidelines. Write an essay on storage of mathematical materials. Has got nothing to do with creating them. It's got nothing to do with properties or examples of them. It's about storage. So, and remember again, there I've got it highlighted. Essay has no points, no bullets, no numbers, no ABCs, etc. Outside the classroom, inside the classroom, think of examples. Explain how you will arrange. Then you explain the arrangement. Then you don't give principles or advantages or disadvantages, how you arrange this. Songs and rhymes, cultural questions, make sure that you know what this is all about and how you feel about it. And go and make summaries on it. Don't just think you will think up something in the exam or in the assignment. Make summaries of different types of questions that can be asked here and make the work your own. Parents, families, always included in your whole teaching life. You can't teach learners without that connection with families and parents and support. And there's also a lot of questions about this. How can you help the parents? How will you motivate the parents to do whatever you want them to do? And that type of questions link with parents, link with the outside world, and you have to sit and think. When you go through your study guide and you summarize these type of questions, think how you will interpret this type of practical sessions, parents' meetings, etc. How you will connect to parents, what ways and means will you use. There's lots of different things that's not mentioned in the study guides, especially with new technology and so on. Mention it, say why, and say what is disadvantages if it's asked. So also the study guide, go through it, etc. Types of assessment. Now, this is one of the questions mostly misunderstood in the past. There's types of questions, there's types of assessment, and there is different methods of testing. You've got, in broad, the types. Homework is just one of them, and you can describe whatever is asked. Setting up a mathematics test. If I ask what different kinds of assessment would you use in the maths class, it's nothing to do with the overall school exam of the grade. It's testing in the maths class. So then you can't say homework, because get the scenario in the maths class. Test questions, how to set up a test. Also, what is the properties of a good test? You see, that's different types of questions. Go and summarize all different types that you can think of questions. Think of more questions that I've just described here. Preparing learners for examinations. There's also a lot of open-ended questions that you can ask here, but there's also concrete facts that you can give. So if a fact question is asked, 100% give you the fact. Interpreting results and performance, go and make summaries, go and summarize this, make it your own. And just to summarize everything, and I think I've said it a lot of times during this presentation, read carefully the question and decide what exactly is asked. Is it properties? Is it advantages? Is it properties of a good or a bad, or whatever is asked? Your question, read it more than once and decide this is what is asked, and then answer only that. All of the best for your future, for your exam first, for your assignments, as well as your future as a teacher. And always be proud of your own work, of your exam, of your assignment. Be proud of that. Make it the best you can. May God bless you. Bye.